Compact Classics presents masterpiece summaries of 101 of the world's greatest books. Selections taken from the bestseller The Great American Bathroom Book, a reader's treasury guide into the works you've always wanted to read, but haven't had the time.
The Merchant of Venice by William Shakespeare. A comedic drama set in Renaissance Venice and Belmont. The principal characters are Antonio, the merchant; Bassanio, his young friend, in love with Portia, a beautiful and wealthy young woman; Shylock, a rich Jew; and Jessica, Shylock's lovely daughter. Whenever Bassanio needed money, he would go to his older friend Antonio, a wealthy Venetian merchant. Now Bassanio needed a sizable loan for a certain enterprise. When questioned concerning this enterprise, Bassanio admitted he had fallen in love with Portia, a wealthy and famous lady. Unless Bassanio had money, he could never hope to compete with the myriad of rich noblemen and princes who vied for Portia's favor. Antonio would have gladly supplied his friend with the money, but he had no cash on hand. All of his capital was tied up in ships, not due to return from foreign ports for several weeks. So Antonio and Bassanio found their way to Shylock, a rich Jewish moneylender who had made his fortune by charging exorbitant interest rates. Though they despised Shylock, the two managed to swallow their pride long enough to petition him to loan them the 3,000 ducats, to be paid back as soon as Antonio's ships returned to port. Shylock bitterly rebuked them for having the temerity to come crawling to him for a loan, after publicly disdaining him. "You call me a misbeliever, cutthroat dog, and spit upon my Jewish gabardine. Well, then, it now appears you need help. What should I say to you? Should I not say, 'Fair sir, you spat on me on Wednesday last. You spurned me such and such day. Another time you called me dog. And for these courtesies I'll lend you thus much moneys?'" Finally, though, glowing and rubbing his hands together as if he would get to the bone of his petitioners, Shylock agreed to lend the money, but on this condition: if the full sum were not repaid within 3 months, he could lawfully cut 1 pound of flesh from Antonio's body. Bassanio was shocked at the proposal, but Antonio assured him there was no need to worry. His ships were expected home a full month before the debt would come due. Reluctantly, Bassanio accepted the terms of the loan. Meanwhile, the lovely Portia had been receiving visits from prospective husbands, and she disliked them all. To make matters worse, she wasn't allowed to choose her husband for herself. Her late father had left a provision in his will that Portia's husband would be chosen by lottery. 3 caskets, one of gold, one of silver, and one of lead, had been laid out, and only one of these contained a portrait of the lady. Any potential suitor must choose one of the caskets. If the casket he chose contained the portrait, he could marry Portia. If not, he would be compelled to leave and never woo another woman again. Fortunately for Portia, none of the suitors who had sought her had as yet guessed the right casket. Elsewhere, Launcelot, Shylock's comical servant, decided he would finally escape from his master's employ. Shylock was simply too cruel to endure. Launcelot paused long enough to break the news to Jessica, Shylock's daughter, who was heartbroken to see him go. "Our house is a hell," she said, "and thou, a merry devil, didst rob it of some taste of tediousness." Before he left, Jessica gave Launcelot a letter to deliver to Lorenzo, a friend of Bassanio's, with whom she had fallen in love. The letter instructed Lorenzo to meet her at her house, where she would escape in disguise and elope with him. That night, Jessica and Lorenzo carried out their lover's plan, fleeing the city in a gondola filled with Shylock's ducats. When Shylock learned that his daughter had run away to marry a Christian, he was at once crushed and furious, and grew all the more fervent in his hatred of Antonio and his Christian friends. In the meantime, Bassanio had made his way to Portia, ready to hazard a try at the caskets. Portia immediately fell in love with him, and feared lest he should choose the wrong box. But guided by Portia's sea-blue eyes, Bassanio avoided the temptation to choose the gold or silver caskets, and, wisely declaring, "All that glitters is not gold," correctly selected the unassuming lead. Both Portia and Bassanio were elated, but no sooner were their wedding plans underway than they were interrupted by horrifying news from Venice. Every one of Antonio's ships had been shipwrecked in a storm, leaving him penniless and unable to pay his debt to Shylock. Shylock would now obtain the revenge he sought. In a pathetic letter to Bassanio, Antonio resigned himself to his fate and bade farewell to his friend.